So if we started with a cube root of 125, why is 5 the answer? Because 5 times 5 times 5 gives you 125. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Okay, awesome. Now here's one where you mix in a whole bunch of little things all together. Cube root of 8 minus 2 squared all over square root of 49. That's supposed to be an easy one. All right, hope you knew this was 2. And then comes a common mess up right here, because people go negative 2 times negative 2 makes 4. That comes out to negative 4. All right, so now I got 2 minus 4 over square root of 49 is 7. And so then that's really negative 2/7. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Okay, awesome. Now, if the test only had that kind of stuff, you'd be taking it right now. Oh, question? Uh-oh. What did I do wrong? I'm assuming there's something wrong. Oh, okay. I always thought I made a mistake. All right. Weird. That is a new one. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. Okay, so there we go. The kids were just concerned that my iPad was not displaying up on the screen. There was apparently nothing wrong with the answer. Now let's get to something that's actually kind of hard. And it shouldn't be, but it's about the order of operations. Isn't it just really tempting to to add those together? But then if I put this, immediately you aren't adding the 5 and the 2. You won't ever. This is a medium hard problem, just because people don't know what order to do it in. I think if you pay attention to the order and you're careful, you get this one right. All right. By now you should be getting close. Judge by looking at the kid next to you, and if they're done, your hand has stopped writing, you figure they're probably done. It's really important. Even if you're like, I don't know this one. Talk to the kid next to you.
Just like multiply the 2 to this one and then just multiply that one.
Yeah, I think for us, right, second line. But yeah.
He's got good eyes.
My handwriting is really bad.
So that bit.
I'm like 1 point.
Wait, so your handwriting is not this, or you just...
That's so.
All right. So you'd start with this part. Now, I totally get some people want to start with the 2. Don't. Start in here. 2x in here. If you put the 2 in there and here, it's going to make this next multiply like super hard. So I think you should start right here. X times x, x squared. X times the 4, 4x. Negative 3 times the x, negative 3x. Negative 3 times the 4, negative 12. Now what do? now I bring down this 5 because I didn't use it, and I bring down the plus 2 because I didn't use it, but that 2, it's really common to have kids just multiply it by the first thing. No, that 2 gets multiplied by everything. You see this 2 here? That's what gets most people, is they don't multiply it by all of the blue stuff. Now, wouldn't it be smart, though, to put these 2 together first? It's called combining like terms. All right, so then those 2 together would make just x. So I'm going to bring this down and say x squared plus x minus 12. And now I'm bringing down my 2 that's still in front. If you just do one thing at a time, math isn't that bad. But there's a million steps in here. All right, now I'm going to take the 2 times everything, and I'll have 2x squared plus 2x minus 2 times 12 is 24. And then I still haven't done the 5. Why has that been waiting for so long? Because in PEMDAS, the last thing you do is add subtract. That is an add 5. It's kind of like written backwards. We're just adding 5 eventually, and it'll go with the 24. So I got 2x squared plus 2x, and then the negative 24 and the positive 5 makes negative 19. Who had that one all the way right? Now notice, that is less than half of the class. So you're normal if you struggled on that one. All right, let's do one more like that, just because now that you've seen it, it should be better. But I'm going to add one twist that also will be on the test. 6 plus 3 parentheses x plus 1 squared. You should know what x plus 1 squared means. And if you think that you just square this and you square that, you're wrong. That's not how it works. And that's one of the silver 20 basics that I hoped you would work on this weekend. So you'd know that this was x plus 1 and x plus 1. Those are little basics you gotta know about math. Like when it says squared, it means this. You gotta know that. Math rewards careful people. You can be good at math and make dumb mistakes. You both can be true. You can be good at math and make dumb mistakes. It's one of the reasons that our grading system doesn't heavily penalize some dumb mistakes. I'll give you the example of that. Did I already tell you how the grading system works on tests? All right, let me tell you. Do you get, if we had 100 questions, it'd be super simple. If you got 90 of the 100 right, you'd have a 90%, right? But if you had 10 questions, well then, if you had 9 out of 10, you'd have a 90%, right? What if we only had 2 questions? Then do you get, if you got 1 wrong, you'd have a 50% and you'd have an F? So do you get that the problem is when you get a really small number of problems, it gets harder and harder to get a good grade on it? Even on a 10-question test, do you get how you could very easily make 2 silly mistakes and all of a sudden be at a B minus, 80% B minus? Okay, so my point is, we didn't want a system that had both a small number of challenging questions and it can't just be a straight percent then. Otherwise, that's not fair. If we make it 7 hard questions and you get 1 wrong, you have a B minus, or a normal B for 1 wrong. Okay, so we give you 8 easy questions and say that you can get any 2 of them wrong and still have an A going. 6 out of 8 on the easy questions. And then on the hard questions, you have 4 hard questions and you can get 1 of those wrong and still have an A. All right, so that means out of 8 plus the 4 questions is 12 questions, you can get 2 easy ones wrong and 1 hard one wrong, which would have been only 9 out of 12, which would have been like a C, and instead it's a straight A. But after your easy questions, like mistakes are done, then, of course, the more wrong you get, the worse your grade gets. Okay, so you can get those 2 easy ones and 1 hard one wrong, and then after that, though, pretty much everyone you get wrong, you're going down another grade. So it's kind of like patient with you. You can still get an A with 3 mistakes, but then after that, the 4th mistake, now you're down to a B. The 5th mistake, now you're down to a C. Okay, so you can afford to make a few dumb mistakes. And that's how the test will go tomorrow. All right, so I'm going to multiply this thing out. I'm going to start with this. That's what I would do if I were you. X squared, and then plus 1x plus 1x. I'm going to skip a step and just go to 2x, because that's what 1x and 1x make. And then don't forget that 1 times 1 is 1. A lot of times kids put 2 there. Now I'm going to go and put this 3 here and this 6 plus, and then don't forget this is in a big parenthesis, because that everything has to get multiplied by 3 in there. So that's next. This times this, so this is going to be 3x squared plus 6x plus 3, and then I got a 6 plus at the beginning of the whole thing. And then that and that together give you 3x squared plus 6x plus 9. Who hung together with that one all the way to the end? All right, good. Now we're up to like 80% of you getting it right. That's awesome. Okay. One of the hardest things is those forms of equations. Here's one that's in a weird form, and you should be able to tell me what you know about it. I just told you 2 key pieces of information. I told you a blah and a blah. What are the 2 things I told you? Come on, say it. You know one of them at least.
Slope.
The slope. What else did I tell you?
A point.
A point. If I told you a slope and a point, then you'd be able to graph this thing easily. Let's just make sure you know what they are. What's the slope? What's the point? Don't say it out loud, please. Just, I know you know it, but that's awesome. But I'll give people a time to process. Now that point is very easily messed up because it's in the wrong order and the negative signs will mess you up. So be really careful on the point. I know we all know the slope is 3/4, that's easy. But what is the point? Take a second. Please compare your point to the kid sitting next to you. All right, I heard a lot of -7, comma 1, and that is correct. So if we had to graph it, you'd all just be able to graph that point. And then to get to the next point, what does that tell you to do? Rise over, what does that tell you to do? Run. So if I graph to this point, -7, 1, I'd be like there. Then I would rise 3 and run 4. Rise 3, run 4. Okay, I think you get the idea there. Now, I actually want to graph one. So let's take a second. And now, if you don't know how to add graph paper to your iPad in Notability, I'm going to tell you right now. Hit the 3 dots. In the 3 dots, you have an option for grid. Go ahead and add a grid. That way you instantly have graph paper on your iPad. I have come a long ways over my teaching days. The internet barely existed when I started, and there were no computers anywhere. There was no iPads for sure. There was no computers. Even the teachers didn't have computers. And right after I started, they added 2 things. They added whiteboards instead of blackboards. Otherwise, it was just all blackboards. And after the whiteboards, they added that one teacher could have a computer in the room. And that computer had to be turned towards the students because it was meant for all of us to share. Can you imagine the teeny tiny little screen and like everybody'd somehow look at that? But anyway, that was the reality a long time ago. That was the first technology that came in. Now we've got crazy abilities to just write in incredible colors and email it to people and add graph paper. All right, so let's see if you can graph this. We'll start with an easy one. Y equals 2/3 x plus 4. I hope you see a point. I see a point. And then I hope you see how much to rise and run to get to your next point. So you've got graph paper, right? Unfortunately on mine, I can't add graph paper as easy as you guys can because this is really good software for recording. And it can be done, it's just a little more complicated. So in case you didn't know, that 4 is the y-intercept. So you put a dot right there, and then you'd rise 2 and run 3. And there you go. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Awesome. All right, now I want to get to the hard questions. For some of you that are like, come on, Mr. Sir, I can do every single one of those. Should have just taken the test today. Well, I think we should practice some of the more brutal ones. Let's say I gave you these 2 points, 2 comma 8 and 3 comma 7. No, I'm not just going to tell you to get this slope. That'd be super easy. I'm going to ask you to get me the equation of the line that goes through these 2 points. And most of you are going to remember that we got to do this y minus thing equation, but only some of you are going to remember that right now. That'll be the difference. If you know this thing, you know the rest of that, then this isn't that hard. You just stick the point in and you figure out the slope and you stick that in and you're done. But I think some of you forgot this. All right, and then the actual answer needs to be in slope intercept. So you got to know 2 different forms apart. And I know for some people that's like so overwhelming, I don't even know where to start. Well, start with the slope. Once you got the slope, ask the kid next to you. If you don't remember this little equation, you've got to ask somebody. What is that equation again? Because if you don't have that equation, you can't do point into this slope equation. That's called point slope. This is where some of you guys will lose your perfect streak of all of them right so far this summer. In a minute, I'm going to help with that equation in case you forgot it. But I would love it if you were old enough to ask the kid next to you. Okay, in case you didn't memorize it yet, y minus y1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. And then I take 7 minus 8 over 3 minus 2. And that's going to be negative 1 over 1, which is negative 1. So my slope's negative 1. I just put it right there. Raise your hand if you have the same slope as me. Okay, awesome. Now I get to pick a point. And the cool part about the way I did this problem is I don't care if you picked 2, 8, or 3, 7. Once you multiply it all the way out, which you're going to have to do, and you solve it for y to get the slope-intercept form, I already know that the slope-intercept is going to start like this because I already know the slope, right? But you have to stick your point in and multiply it all the way out, and no matter which point you picked, the answer comes out the same. All right, so I'm going to show you if I stuck in 2, 8. The 2 would go here, the 8 would go here, and the multiply it all out and solve it for y part gets you down to an equation like this, but then you'll know what the y-intercept is. All right, take a second, talk to the kid next to you, see if you get the same thing. You lost? Tell him that.
Still 10.
All right. So I got negative 1x, and then negative 1 times negative 2 makes positive 2. And I still have y minus 8 right here. Okay, and then if I add 8 to both sides, I have negative 1x plus 10. Who had plus 10 at the end? Awesome. Now I totally get it. Some of you use the other point, and then you got something different, and you think, oh, it's because I used the other point. Nope. If you did it right, either point works out to the exact same equation at the end when you solve it for y. Okay, now if you still don't feel good at that, you still got time. You got one more chance to practice it tonight. Because there's a homework assignment that's going to have something like that on it. And then there's the key that you can reference. All right, so you still got a chance to fix this. Okay, there's one more that I want to go through. And that's, what if I had an equation that was in slope-intercept, but I wanted it to be in standard form? if you know what standard form looks like, you know that the x should just be first. Can you fix this so it's in standard form? Need me to, I can try to help find it with mine, because there's a way to have Apple. You can have find a friend's phone kind of thing. Okay, we'll try it on there first. You're gonna wanna go to the Apple website and type in your code. All right, here we go. All you had to do here was add 1/2 x to both sides, because now the x is first. And I wish it was that simple, but what's the catch? Got to times everything by 2. Who already knew that? Raise your hand if you knew that you multiplied by 2. Nice. And those cancel, and it's x plus 2y equals 8 times 2 is 16. Now, there's usually some kid who's like, well, I have that, but everything's negative. That's not wrong. Do you get if I wanted to, I can multiply everything by -1, and this would become negative x and negative 2y and negative 16. You know you can multiply by anything, right? Just multiply everything by -1 and they all turn to the opposite, and that's not wrong. It's the same equation. Now, I think it looks more complicated, so I don't think I would do that on purpose. But if you ever get the exact opposite of everything, that's the same thing. Okay. Now, do you remember the little saying I gave you about the x-intercept is where blah, 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 and the y-intercept is where blah, blah, blah? Let's see if you do. What's the x-intercept of this? Well, it's where do, and hopefully you know what to do. What's the y-intercept of this thing? If you forgot that, I understand. I did just show you this yesterday. The x-intercept is where y is what? Y is 0. So you go stick in y is 0. That part cancels. 2x equals 10. X must equal 5. But a lot of you got burned on your homework because you just put in 5. And the directions said, put it as a coordinate point. 5 is not a coordinate point. It's either 5, 0 or 0, 5. It's one of those two. Well, I know y is 0, right? So it's got to be 5, 0. All right, how about the y-intercept? The y-intercept is where x is 0. So then I go up to my equation here. And I'll just rewrite it. There was a 3y right there. And x is 0. I get to go put an x is 0 right here. That cancels out this part. 3y equals 10. So y equals 10 over 3. But you got to write it as a point. And x is 0, so it's 0, 10/3. You got the x-intercept, you got the y-intercept. Do you get if you needed to graph it? If you just found the x and the y-intercept, you could just put dots and draw a line through them. Really easy if you needed to graph this. Okay, cool. So, almost done. The last melon. If I gave you this, let me see, this line, and I told you that y equals ax plus b, what could you tell me about A? And what could you tell me about B? And I'm going to give you this clue. You can't tell if it's like 5 or 7 or 12, but you can tell if it's positive, and there's a math way to say that. You can't just say A is positive or B is positive. There's a math way to write that. Hint, it involves an alligator. I know some of you are annoyed that I didn't use M. I get it. I wish that we would always just, math teachers would all agree that M is always slope. But sometimes they put an A there. Some books use A. In fact, your graphing calculator, deep within it, it never uses M for the slope. It uses A. Apparently that they probably cater to Texas, called Texas Instruments Corporation, right? So there's a lot of people in Texas, and I'm guessing that in Texas they probably use A for slope. All right, so what could you say about the slope? Would you agree it's positive, and therefore you could say is greater than 0? Okay, and how about B? The y-intercept. Also greater than 0. All right. What's this spot called? The x-intercept. There's no letter for that. But if I asked you about the x-intercept, what could you say about the x-intercept? It's negative. It's less than 0. Yep. All right, cool. All right, so you've made it to the end. Now you're well prepared for that test. Now, hopefully, you're going to do your homework tonight, and you're going to get stuck on a problem, and then you're going to go look at the key, and you're going to like really take this seriously, because that way you can start off with a good score. Everybody feels much better after the first test comes out like an A or a B. If it does come out to like a C or a D, it does not mean you should immediately run away and take the easier class. Okay, that just because of one test, that does not mean that. Okay, but it might mean you should come in and get some help if you're still struggling with your regular Algebra 1, because this is all considered Algebra 1. We have not started Algebra 2 yet. This is all review. Now, I know there's probably at least one of these things that you never learned before, but it's considered Algebra 1. All right, so good luck, study well, and then tomorrow I hand you one of these, and we say how you do. That's all I got for you for today.